Hello hunters and troopers, Aaron here, back with another video. Now that the names and images of the new weapons and artifacts have been announced, we can finally talk about them. So yeah, let's talk about them, how good they are, and what other implications they have on the game. Screw a good intro, this video is going to be long enough as is. We got more important stuff to worry about. But do note, there are chapters in the description if you're looking for something specific. So let's barrel on through this as quickly and as easily as possible. As we all know, the first sets of artifacts in the last two regions have changed the game. However, these new ones seem to be much more niche by comparison. The first set we're getting is the Marechaussee Hunter artifact set, which I still stutter over, so I'm just going to call it the Marechaussee Hunter set from now on. This set increases normal charge attack damage by 15% in the 2-piece and a stacking 12% up to a max of 36% crit rate buff in the 4-piece when the wielder's current HP changes. While this crit rate buff is massively overpowered, the HP change mechanic heavily limits the usability of the set as not many characters can force the effect. The only characters with this privilege are Lyney Lynette, Dehya, Xiao, and Troupe, but to a lesser extent than the others. In these cases, Marechaussee Hunter is usually these characters' best in slot artifact sets for personal damage output. For Xiao, this new crit set offers more valuable stats than just attack, which he can easily get from Bennett. He is also able to fully stack this set much quicker than his signature. However, he gains no benefit from the 2-piece, and this set grants him nothing to start with, unlike his signature. In most cases, his signature set will be better when using just his skill or at the very start of his burst. But upon performing his second plunge, Marechaussee Hunter surpasses the Vermilion Hereafter set dramatically, as it will deal around 13% more damage overall. I already covered these two in their own videos, but the same can be said for Lyney and Lynette, as Marechaussee Hunter performs significantly better than other options. On the other hand, we have Dehya, whose damage output is so low, her signature set isn't her best unless she has a team with a massive amount of particle generation. But how does this new artifact set fare? Marechaussee Hunter thankfully does outperform both Favonius with Furokasha and Beacon with Emblem. However, the damage increase for both is less than 1%. So this set is not mandatory for Dehya to use. Instead, it's just another option. Unlike the others, Hu Tao can only proc the artifact set's 4-piece effect once while she's on field. The buff also only has a 5-second duration, meaning it will only last for about half the time she will be on field for. The damage increase proves to be awful, as the small 12% crit rate bonus for half the duration of her uptime is not good enough to be competitive with her other sets. However, if she is able to get the max stacks of this artifact set for the entire duration, Marechaussee Hunter does end up outperforming her other options by about 6.2%, which, in my opinion, is not a significant enough increase to warrant forcing her to use the set. Instead, sticking with Crimson Witch would be more resin efficient. But let's just say you want her to use this set. How could you force her to use it? Hu Tao, along with other characters, simply cannot get the Marechaussee Hunter set to work for her based on her base kit. However, there are a few ways to open up the usability of the set by inflicting self-damage through the means of burning and burgeon. This would mean that characters like Klee, who can work very well in air fryer comps, Ayato, who is great with burgeon, and Tartaglia, who has his intergradational burgeon variant, can all use this set in their specific compositions. Hu Tao is similar, as she can also be run in a burgeon comp, which would help her instantly fully stack this artifact set, especially with a Nahida with a low refinement prototype amber to keep her health steady. While this can work, it's a lot of effort and stress just for a minimal damage increase in a niche team. However, unlike Hu Tao's niche comp, Klee, Ayato, and Tartaglia's comps are much better and much more widely used, making Marechaussee Hunter a valid option for them. Thankfully, the pure damage this set grants them helps dramatically too, as it's about 8% to 17% better than their other sets for Curry Ayato, Intergradational Child, and Air Fryer Klee. With Marechaussee Hunter, compositions that introduce self-damage have become a lot better due to the major damage boost this set grants the on-field damage dealer. However, this also leads to a smaller indirect buff to healers, since they can also manipulate health pools to stack their allies' artifact sets. While healers in general benefit much more from Marechaussee Hunter, certain healers that heal too much in large bursts can prove to be rather annoying, since they will constantly push allies to full health, granting them only one stack. Instead, the new set seems to be a greater buff to small heal over time effects that will instantly grant max stacks whenever they're needed. While there's not a lot of heal over time effects in the game, the two to make note of are Yaoya's Ascension 4 passive and the weapon Prototype Amber, both of which almost instantly grant max stacks. This distinction means that Xiao and users of Prototype Amber act as more valuable supports for users of the Marechaussee Hunter set than other healers. Enough with Marechaussee Hunter though. What about its sister set, the Golden Troupe. This set increases elemental skill damage by 20% in the 2-piece, then it increases even further in the 4-piece by 25%, and it increases it by another 25% if the user's not on the field. This leads to a whopping 70% elemental skill damage boost for off-field characters. Due to the set's simplicity, mechanics-wise, the list of characters and complexity for the set is a lot smaller. Generally speaking, this set does not offer enough to any character that is not elemental skill oriented and off-field. Almost every other set will do more for their users, so the only characters of any intrigue are Yae Miko and Fischl, as every other character makes strong use of other sets. Other characters that could use this set but have other sets that are significantly better are Dehya, as Tenacity will offer similar damage plus buffing potential, Albedo, who gets some base damage increases plus % damage for his entire kit with the Husk set, and Dehya, who will benefit much more from Deepwood. For the two units that actually want this set, when prioritizing their elemental skill damage output, Golden Troupe is vastly superior. Fischl gets the largest buff from this set since 97% of her damage output comes from her skill. The most important part of her kit to make note of is her Ascension 4 passive, which constantly procs, has no ICD, and counts as elemental skill damage too. When compared to her old 2-piece variants or Gilded Dreams, her damage will increase by 19% to 26% when switching to Golden Troupe. This is a massive damage increase, as it's the type of damage boost that normally comes with getting the 2nd or 3rd constellation for a 5-star. Why are we buffing debatably the best Electro character in the game to now be the uncontested best Electro character in the game when Amber has been useless and hasn't gotten a buff in 3 years? I don't know, but it's happening. While she may also be getting a buff from Golden Troupe, not all of Yae Miko's damage is focused on her elemental skill, meaning her total damage increase will be lower than that of Fischl's. If using her primarily for elemental skill damage, she will receive anywhere between an 11.9% and 18% damage increase, which is incredibly valuable. However, these are the largest damage increases when comparing her damage output for each set. When looking to use her burst, this new set is only better by 6.7 to 9.7%. While it's not as great, this damage increase is still pretty significant, so there's still no reason not to use Golden Troupe. That is until we consider her Hyperbloom damage, which when compared to Gilded Dreams, decreases by 8% when switching to Golden Troupe. So while Golden Troupe is much better for her raw damage output, Gilded Dreams will still surpass it if you want to flex her into Hyperbloom teams. In terms of her best all-purpose set, Golden Troupe is better due to the weird inconsistent passive rocking of Gilded Dreams, and because many more of Yae Miko's teams involve Aggravate and not Hyperbloom. All in all, the new artifact sets are extremely limited. Those that want to use the Marechaussee Hunter set can use it, and it will be their best set. But for most of the options, it's either too niche or not needed in Dehya's case. The opposite issue is present with Golden Troupe, as most other characters that would want to use this set have others present that are just superior, leading to only 2 characters that actually want this set. Even then, one of those characters has some decent competition with another set depending on playstyle. These situational and niche cases drop the versatility of these sets from the 13 potential use cases all the way down to just 3 or 3.5. These would be Lyney and Xiao for Marechaussee Hunter and Fischl with a dash of Yae Miko for Golden Troupe. This is counter to the other 2 domain sets that were released alongside the release of the last 2 regions. The artifact sets in these domains held a crap ton of usability and versatility, as one set became the best in slot for many characters, while the other set became a very strong runner-up for a lot of others. While this isn't technically a bad thing, I can't say I'm not disappointed that we won't be getting anything great to shake up the game a little bit. Despite the new artifact sets being pretty disappointing in my eyes, we do have more weapon options to look forward to. In fact, we have a crap ton of new weapon options coming up with the new craftables, new battle pass weapons for the first time ever, a new free-to-play fishing weapon, and a new 5-star option. Here, I'll be going over each weapon's who, what, when, where, why, and hows, and toward the end, I will have a little tier list on the overall power levels of each weapon based on their strength and versatility for simplicity's sake. We'll start with the fishing weapon, then craftables, leading into the battle pass weapons, and ending it off with the 5-star. The crossing of Cendre is a weapon you'll be able to obtain by fishing like the catch. It comes with an average attack and average energy recharge substat. The passive increases elemental skill crit rate by 8 to 16% and will also increase the user's energy recharge stat by 16 to 32% or 5 seconds after using an elemental skill, making this weapon basically a mixture between the 2 event weapons, the Festering Desire and the Oathsworn Eye. In terms of usefulness, it turns out to just be a selfish version of Favonia's Sword for those characters with major energy issues. If we ever get a Dehya for Sword, this weapon will be the one for them. However, at the current current moment, this weapon is just worse than Festering Desire, which helps boost skill damage even more instead of granting energy recharge while still having all the same stats. Even if there is a character that would really want the energy recharge, Amanoma Kageuchi exists, which will do the same job but with much better base stats, except if the character doesn't scale with attack. So the only character that actually wants to use this right now would be Alhaitham if he does not have a battery, but even then, Harbinger of Dawn will still just be better. Thankfully, the craftable sword Finale of the Deep is much better. This weapon has a high base attack with a low attack percent substat. After using an elemental skill, the character's attack will increase further by 12 to 24%. The extra part of this effect's passive might be a little confusing based on its wording and because it grants a bond of life that absorbs healing, which then grants a flat attack bonus scaling based on HP. However, it's just a weird way for the game to calculate stats. The bond of life is very easy to max out, as it will normally be filled after 1 or 2 heals from your support character. From the way the passive is worded, the bond of life seems like it has its own healing meter, which means you don't need to worry about dropping your character's HP to get the bond of life bonus. Instead, the passive can just be simplified to, after the wielder uses an elemental skill, they will receive a 12 to 24% attack buff, and when they are next healed, including overhealing, they are granted a 120 to 240 flat attack. This passive makes this weapon a massive attack stat stick, which can be used by a crap ton of characters as long as they have a healer. Characters that can benefit largely from this would be Ayato, as it would be slightly behind the Black Sword in terms of damage output, making it his best free-to-play weapon. Ayaka, as it would be slightly behind Amanoma. It would be great for Kuching and even Xingqiu too, since his burst doesn't snapshot. It's not overpowered, but in terms of free-to-play craftable options, this weapon is one of the best out there. The catalyst Flowing Purity has a similar yet better passive effect and the exact same base stats as Finale of the Deep, so we'll be going over it next. Flowing Purity increases elemental damage bonus by 8 to 16% after using an elemental skill, and increases it further through the Bond of Life effect by 8.8 to 17.6% on average. This weapon is actually really strong when you want to use a DPS catalyst user with a healer, as it only performs about 6 to 9% worse than a Refinement 5 Widsith. This is phenomenal, as DPS catalysts now have an actual good and versatile free-to-play weapon option, as before there was only Mappa Mare, which though it is generally better, it's not as versatile. The next craftable is Song of Stillness. This bow is very strong, as it offers an average attack base stat and an average attack percent substat with the simplified version of Flowing Purity's passive effect. After the wielder of this weapon is healed, they will gain a 16 to 32% damage bonus. This is incredibly strong. However, this weapon has some severe competition with the Stringless and the Alley Hunter, as they both offer similar stats but with other drawbacks. Generally speaking, Alley Hunter is still best for off-field characters like Fischl due to its huge damage boost with a severe on-field drawback. Stringless is also still better for those that want elemental mastery and who use primarily their elemental skill and burst for damage output like Venti. So the only characters that this would actually be better for are those that deal damage with every part of their kit. However, this passive does not say that overhealing counts, so a character like Ganyu and Freeze teams would not benefit from this as much, especially since Prototype Crescent is so freaking strong. Lyney would be another character that can benefit from this, but again, Prototype Crescent is very strong, which will do more for him than this weapon. Instead, there's only one character that benefits largely from this option, especially because of Dendro introducing him to another variant of his favorite team. This weapon is perfect for Tartaglia, as he is an on-field DPS unit who uses pretty equal amounts of his entire kit to deal damage. The only downside is that he needs to be healed in order for this weapon to be his best, which sucks, especially since Bennett doesn't heal until he's below 70% of his max health. But if this buff can be procced with ease, this weapon does become Tartaglia's best 4-star weapon option even over the rest. However, this doesn't help the fact that this weapon is absurdly limited, as not only does it require the user to use their entire kit, but it also requires them to have their HP restored. The free-to-play options only get worse though, as the polearm Rightful Reward is very useless. It offers a high base attack and a low HP percent scaling, which is very bad for attack and HP scalers alike. Furthermore, the passive effect requires the player to be healed and only grants the wielder 8 to 16 energy once per 10 seconds. When they are healed, the only characters that would ever want to use this weapon are Candace, Yao, Mika, and Toma, as they all scale with HP and want some energy generation. However, Candace and Toma are best used in Bloom teams and want elemental mastery instead of HP, meaning they would prefer the other craftable instead of this weapon. Etain also offers a similar passive, as it will restore 9 to 15 energy instead of Rightful Reward's 8 to 16 energy, while offering more useful stats. Then we have Mika, who is an HP scaling healer with major energy issues, so obviously this weapon would be good for him, right? Well, yes it is, however, he is usually used in teams that suffer from energy issues, meaning his other units would also benefit from a battery. This means that Favonius is still just a better option, as it will help both himself and his team's energy generation much more than this weapon will. Lastly, there's Xiao, who can actually use this weapon decently well. This is due to the fact that she's a healer with off-field and team-wide healing capabilities, who also has some energy issues. The reason why she would be better with this weapon over Favonius is that her teams don't have major energy issues, so she doesn't have to worry too much about batterying her other units, unlike Mika. Ending off the craftables, we have Tidal Shadow, which has an average base attack and an average attack percent substat. Then the passive requires the user to be healed, in which case they are granted 24 to 48% attack. This passive can be triggered off-field and does not have a cooldown, which means it can be procced continuously to extend the buff's duration. However, this weapon sucks. Only Eula and Dehya would actually want to use this weapon, and both of them have vastly superior and more consistent options. This may not be a bad free-to-play option for Dehya, but Favonius Greatsword will be a much powerful upgrade, and Katsuragi Kiri Nagamasa will be a much better free-to-play option. The new Battle Pass weapons are a bit better, though they come at the cost of $60 to fully refine. This is important to note because that could just be a brand new video game, but no, you're spending it on a silly little weapon in a silly little game. I see you. Following the same order we did in the craftable section, the Wolf-Fang sword is freaking phenomenal. This weapon comes with an average base attack and an average crit rate substat. That's not all though, as its passive increases elemental skill and burst damage by 16 to 32% and increases the crit rate of elemental skills and elemental bursts by 2 to 4% once every 0.1 seconds, up to a max of 8 to 16% every time a skill or burst hits an enemy. Based on how this passive is worded, this can only be procced when the wielder is on field, meaning sub-DPS sword users like Xingqiu, Kaya, Albedo, and Lynette can't use it reliably, though they still can if they're on field for a decent amount of time. The only on-field DPS characters that would work with this weapon would be Alhaitham and Ayaka, where this will be one of their best weapons. For these two, this weapon will be dealing only 1% less damage than Primordial Jade Cutter, which is absolutely ridiculous, especially when that weapon is one of their best options. However, without these two characters, there's hardly a reason to get this weapon at all, as it will really only be a significant Jade Cutter downgrade without the ability to build up that crit rate passive. Sacrificial Jade is up next, and though it may be named after it, this weapon is not part of the Sacrificial series. Sacrificial Jade comes with a low base attack and a high crit rate substat. Passive is weird though. If the character is off field for 5 seconds, they will receive a 32 to 64% buff to their HP and a 40 to 80 elemental mastery buff. However, this buff disappears if the character is on field for 10 seconds, which might make you think only off-field characters can use it, but that's incorrect, since all on-field DPS units have an optimal on-field time of around 8 seconds. Almost every single Catalyst character can have permanent uptime of a passive. Swapping through the entire team also takes a minimum of 6 seconds, which means that this passive is almost always active no matter the situation. So the stats are what matter most for this weapon, and the stats are weird. Almost no character wants this lineup of buffs. However, there are a few DPS characters that can actually make use of the buffs this weapon grants. Yanfei, especially at C4, can utilize every single part of this weapon, as her shield will scale with the HP, her vapes will scale with the elemental mastery, and her damage will scale with the crit rate. This weapon for Yanfei ends up outperforming the Wit Sith, though not by enough to make it worth getting, as it offers a mere 1.5% larger damage output. It also pops off with Yae Miko and Nahida, who both benefit from the seemingly small elemental mastery buff a lot more than most other characters. For Yae Miko, this weapon becomes one of her best 4-star options, as it's generally going to output only 2.1% lower damage numbers than the Wit Sith, while also buffing her health out of one-shot range, which is massive for her survivability. If you don't mind taking that small hit in damage for the benefits of being able to tank a lot more stuff, this could be a very good option for Yae Miko. Nahida is a different story though, as she benefits greatly from a massive amount of elemental mastery. Since this weapon offers a nice bit of EM plus a lot of crit, this weapon surpasses the Wit Sith by 4.3% and turns out to be her best damaging 4-star weapon option. Overall, Sacrificial Jade is a pretty strong and decent catalyst that works best with characters that can constantly trigger reactions and have large base stats to scale off of. However, not many characters want the entire stat spread this catalyst offers, making it just okay for a violent majority of accounts. Up next is the Scion of the Blazing Sun, which offers a high base attack and a low crit rate value. Passive effect sends an arrow onto a target target after they have been hit by a charged attack from the wielder. The target hit by this arrow will take 28% to 56% more damage from charged attacks by the wielder. This sounds great, but the arrow will most likely only hit one target, meaning in any situation other than single target content, this weapon is heavily outscaled by almost everything else. Even if it is used in single target content, it's not that far off in damage output from Prototype Crescent and Skyward Harp for Lyney, Ganyu, and Tignari, which makes this weapon pretty crappy. Then we have Battle of the Fjords, which is insanely powerful in the right situations as it offers an average base attack with an average crit rate. The passive is where this weapon pops off, as it grants a massive 120 to 240 elemental mastery boost to the user if they are in a party consisting of 3 or more different elemental types. This conditional passive effect is pretty much not even a condition, since most teams want around 3 different elements anyway. This leads the weapon to become one of the strongest 4-star options out there for most polearm characters that want to trigger elemental reactions. The passive also has the most amount of elemental mastery granted by any weapon other than the Widsith and 1,000 floating dreams, when also considering its passive effect. This weapon is phenomenal and ends up being Hu Tao's and Sino's best 4-star weapon option, Hyperbloom Raiden's best weapon, and a very powerful weapon option for characters like Xiangling and Rosaria. The final battle pass weapon we have is the Talking Stick, which hosts a high base attack and low crit rate. This is solid, but the weapon is held back severely by its passive. This weapon grants the user 16 to 32% attack when the wielder is affected by Pyro, and it also grants the wielder 12-24% elemental damage bonus if the user is affected by Hydro, Cryo, Electro, or Dendro, with each effect lasting 15 seconds. This passive sucks, as self-elemental application is very rare to come by. Characters that apply Pyro to the active character are Toma's initial skill cast, Xinyan's initial skill cast, and Bennett's burst. Those that can apply Hydro to the user are Xingshou's initial skill cast and initial burst cast, Tokumi's initial skill cast, and Barbara's skill. Those that can apply Cryo are Layla's initial skill cast and Diona's skill. Those that apply Electro, the active party member, are Beto's initial skill cast, Razor's burst, and Dory's burst. And the only character that can apply Dendro to themselves is Ikiki's initial skill cast. Of these characters, only Bennett, Barbara, Diona, and Dory can support a separate wielder of this weapon, and only Xinyan, Beto, and Razor can self-proc this weapon's passive. But even then, there are drastically better weapon options out there for these units, like the other Battle Pass weapon, which offers slightly over twice the damage bonus with an easier to obtain condition. Due to the restrictive nature of this weapon that only hinders it, plus the fact that it offers minuscule buffs, I feel like I can say that this weapon is beyond awful. On to the final weapon, the 5-star Burst Great Magic, or Lyney's signature weapon. This weapon comes with an average base attack and average crit damage substat. The passive increases charged attack damage by 16% and grants the wielder attack percent and movement speed buffs based on the elemental types of the other users in the party, including the user. For every party member with the same elemental type, the user is granted 16%, 32%, or 48% attack bonus, and for each type that's different, the user gains 4%, 7%, or 10% movement speed bonus. Most team comps where this weapon would be used would have the wielder gain a 32% attack bonus and a 7% movement speed bonus, but for Lyney himself, this buff will usually have a 48% attack bonus and a 4% movement speed bonus. This weapon proves to be Lyney's best in slot, but it also proves to be a powerful option for some others too, as most of the time it will be slightly better than the Thundering Pulse. Generally speaking, those that would prefer this weapon over Thundering Pulse are Fischl, Ganyu, Ujosara, Ignari, Kale, Farusan, and Lyney, while those that want Thundering Pulse are only Tartaglia and Yoimiya. Even then, in each of these situations, other than the 3 that benefit from charged attack damage, the damage difference will be minor. So let's talk about the power level for all of these weapons. Are they worth getting over other options? In terms of strength and versatility, I would say that the first Great Magic, Battle for the Fjords, and Wolf-Fang are the best new options. These weapons are all better than most other weapon options for a decent amount of characters, and they all compete with the current strong 5-star weapons. Below them are Finale of the Deep, Sacrificial Jade, and Flowing Purity, as they are either niche and strong 4-star options or are decently strong and can be used on many characters. However, the other weapon options below I see as not being that worth it, as they are either too weak to make their buffs worth it, they are too niche to make their decent buffs worth it, or their buffs are too weak and too niche. However, this is just power level, which is different from comparing their value over other weapon options. In this sense, let's compare these weapon options to the others we have in game. Comparing them like this shows us that almost all weapons are worse or on the same playing field as their counterparts, with the only outliers being Battle of the Fjord being better than Dragon's Bane, and the comparison between the 4-star Wolf-Fang and the 5-star Jade Cutter. While these two weapons are the only ones that actually have a positive comparison, I can't say I can suggest actually getting them, because the small steps up from these two are some of the best and most versatile weapons in the game. So instead of spending $60 on a Battle Pass weapon, why not use that money to go toward a Staff of Homa or Jade Cutter, both of which being of much higher value. But now that that's all said and done, I want to ask all of you what you think of the new weapon options. Do you think I overrated or underrated any weapon or artifacts? Do you think I missed something? Do you plan to use any of the weapons or artifacts? Which characters do you plan to use them on? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. But with that, I will get out of your hair. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye!